Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Perhaps we'll start the conversation here, and I think it's a good place to always start, given that this mining Indaba has been, 3 decades running.
Yeah.
And it's good to always start with a temperature check from the last time you were here. What has been some of the significant developments in Lesotho since the last mining Indaba?
Yeah. Well, since the last mining Indaba, I would say that we've made great progress in terms of, say, for instance, changing the laws to make them more investor friendly. One thing we have been lacking is proper data and a proper cadastre system where this data can be digitized, put on the system for any investor anywhere in the world to be able to access it, see what kind of minerals we have, and then do the applications. So I think we are all in progress to actually do that. Get the cadastre in place, start mapping the resources we have, and then put them on the system. But apart from that, we were able to open one coal mine, which is probably the first, well, to issue one exploration license for coal, which is the first in the country.
Right.
But what has been exciting is that the people who are actually exploring for that coal now tell us that they've found out that apart from the coal, there's rare earth minerals there, which are apparently more lucrative than the coal.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
When did that prospecting start?
Well, we gave them the license about, I think, 6 or 7 months ago.
Right.
Yeah, so now they're starting.
And do you have a sense of the timeline as to when that prospect will convert into extraction? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it changes now that there are other rare earth minerals that have been found alongside the coal, and that may change the approach entirely. But do you have a sense of what that timeline looks like?
Well, look, legally we give them 2 years for prospecting. After 2 years, when you have the results and the deposits are commercially viable, then we give you a long-term license, a lease, a 10-year lease, whereby then government can also take shares in the project.
Let's talk about the point you made earlier about the review that you've undertaken on laws, policies, and systems for the attraction of foreign investment, mentioning, of course, making data available for prospective investors. What is the investment case today for those listening for the Kingdom of Lesotho as far as its natural resources sector is concerned?
Yeah, well, I would say probably Lesotho is the best kept secret in terms of the mining sector, in the sense that it has always been overshadowed by South Africa as a bigger country with more resources. So now what we realize is that we have not been doing enough studies on other minerals. We know, for instance, that we have shale gas, we have oil, we have things like copper, gold, but these have not been explored enough. So now, what we want to do is to actually do a bit more studies on this and then tell potential investors about them. But the potential is there.
I would imagine that it becomes a priority for the government, given that the diamond export alone or diamond extraction alone accounts for a significant portion of the GDP, 8%
Yeah.
of the country's GDP, which is, I think, as a measurement of any single commodity for any country, a significant contribution to the GDP. And is there potential on increasing those volumes? And how does that change the governance prioritization around natural resources?
Yeah. Look, there is potential. If you're looking at diamonds alone, that 8% contribution of the GDP comes from 4 mines, just 4 mines. So you can imagine if we could double those mines and to say 8 or 10, what kind of impact they would have on the economy. But what's interesting is that Lesotho has some of the best diamonds in the world.
Right.
For instance, our number one mine, which is Lithium Diamonds, uh, used to have the highest dollar per carat of any mine in the world, which means it had the best diamonds, and these are the diamonds that are used by their brand names, such as Dua, Louis Vuitton, Van Cleef, and so on.
Yeah.
So if we could double that production, then the economy would grow fast.
A big part of it, and you were present at the ministerial symposium yesterday. There was a lot of conversations around local beneficiation, local processing. What's Lesotho's story around that, and the thinking happening in the Kingdom of Lesotho around processing minerals locally, particularly diamonds, where a lot of it often happens in Europe?
Yeah. Well, with us, it's a bit difficult in the sense that our volumes are very small. We have high quality stones, but the volumes are small. I think we do about 5%, for instance, of what Botswana does. So it becomes difficult if we have 4 mines to now start putting in laws to say, for instance, that a certain percentage of those 4 mines should go for local beneficiation, because now you'd need volumes even to set up those value chains. So my feeling is that the only way it can be done is in collaboration with other countries. For instance, if Botswana, South Africa, Lesotho were to say we are harmonizing our laws, aligning them to say that we beneficiate regionally, as opposed to taking these diamonds to countries that do not even have diamond mines, but they are aggregated there and sold there. For instance, Botswana could be the auction, maybe the auction center for these diamonds here in Africa, but it will need a collaborative effort. But apart from that, what we are trying to do is to encourage small scale artisanal miners to get into the industry and see how we can help them grow from there. Because now the requirements, the legal requirements for applying for an artisanal license will be far less than if somebody is applying for the bigger concessions.
Do you have applications for that? Are there active artisanal miners? Are they attracted to the lowered barriers to entry that has been brought about?
In actual fact, we opened applications, I think, over the last 6 months. So we are in the process of now going through the applications we have and then allocating some of those licenses, especially because in the Lesotho we have quite a lot of rivers. So there is, for instance, alluvial mining, which does not need a lot of machinery
Yeah.
to start an enterprise.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you're in the process of harmonizing your laws on the one hand,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to things like beneficiation and thinking into the future about it, but also with the discovery of more precious metals, rare earth metals, coal mine being having prospecting done for that. Harmonizing the laws means that you have to think beyond diamonds and kimberlites and that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. Which countries are you looking at for potential benchmarking when it comes to the regulatory frameworks that you think would be useful to the conditionalities, the very specific conditionalities of Lesotho?
Well, I think within the region, you could look at countries like Botswana and South Africa. For artisanal mining, maybe countries like Zimbabwe. But it has to, like I said, it has to be a concerted effort of ministers. I mean, we started that discussion even last year with the Honorable Minister Gwede Mantashe. Even yesterday, we were actually talking about that to say, as countries, we have to work together to see how we retain the resources in Africa. Because we are told that, for instance, they keep throwing figures around that Africa has about 120 trillion US dollars
Yeah.
of resources underground. But now to monetize that, it means we have to have some kind of a framework. I was even asking some people in one of the panels, saying to them, look, for instance, South Africa, why can't we pass a law in South Africa that says, for instance, iron ore, within the next 10 years, iron ore cannot be exported? Because if you give that kind of scenario to say, we're going to pass a law that says iron ore cannot be exported within the next 10 years, obviously these smelters or big companies will start thinking of investing in the factories here in South Africa.
Right.
So, but it probably needs political will, break the silos, work together as countries to move forward.
Yeah.
Because they say, for instance, they say it's a balance sheet game, and I always say that 120 trillion, if it's a balance sheet game, whose balance sheet is it sitting on? Governments or private entities? And most of the time, it's private entities that are listed outside our countries. So it's sitting in private hands.
Yeah. Let's talk about, and a big part of the conversation at the Indaba this year, as many times before, and yesterday at the Ministerial Symposium, was communities
Yeah.
and the role communities not only play, but the benefit that they receive. Reflect for us on the four diamond mines that exist in the Kingdom of Lesotho, and talk about the
Yeah.
communities surrounding it, supporting it, and what their role and beneficiation to the existence of those mines have been. Is there a strong relationship between the companies, the government, and the communities?
Well, there is, but I still think we can do more. Because, for instance, within the mining value chain, you have a lot of other activities, subcontracts, whether it's things like fuel supply, load and haul, explosives, catering. You have that whole value chain. And most of the time, we say to the mines that they should give first preference to people who have the required skills around the mines, the communities around the mines. At the same time, we encourage them to have very strong social responsibility, whereby they should see that they assist in things like education of the kids around the area, in terms of scholarships. They should assist in terms of health matters by building clinics, building school classrooms, and so on. But I think a lot can be said about that.
On scholarships, oftentimes when countries prioritize the mining sector as a key economic contributor to the country, investment into skills development specifically for that sector concomitantly becomes a priority alongside that. Is that part of the strategy for years going forward?
Yeah, it's part of the strategy, but it's difficult in the sense that we need to change the education system. Right now, what we are relying on is the mining companies themselves identifying the skills they require and then giving scholarships. But I think the whole education system should actually change for all African countries to say, if we are intentional about mining, you should have probably a university that deals solely with mining, an institute of higher learning
Yeah.
dealing with mining. For instance, they're saying that we Africans, you'll find in our schools, English is compulsory, but agriculture, it's optional.
Yeah.
It shows that there's a misalignment in terms of what we need in terms of skills and what we are providing in terms of the education. So even that, it would need the ministers of education to try and align with the mining companies and the mining ministries to make sure that that capacity is built. Most of the time, you'll find that if you want a consultant in the mining sector, you even go to countries that do not have mines to get that capacity. But the countries that do have the capacity do not have those skills.
Yeah.
So there's something wrong.
Yeah. And just lastly, this gathering and this occasion becomes useful for heads of states, for ministers, regulators, and investors to make key announcements about the next 12 months of the sector. What are some of the things you're looking forward to over the next 12 months for the Kingdom of Lesotho specifically, that you hope to come back next year and report some great success and strides on?
Well, we are going to have our own mining in Indaba this year, and we did have it last year. So one of the things is to try and get people to zoom into Lesotho and see what Lesotho has to offer, even apart from, say, mining. I mean, we have a lot to offer in terms of energy. We have a lot to offer in terms of water. As you may be aware that, for instance, most of the water that's going into Gauteng, the Gauteng
Yeah.
region, comes from Lesotho. And in the same vein, we have a project called the Lesotho Botswana Water Transfer Scheme that's going to transfer water from Lesotho through South Africa, 700 kilometers to Botswana. So we have all these other sectors that could attract foreign direct investment into the country,
Yeah.
over and above mining.
Yeah. Vanessa, thank you so much for your time and all the best. Really do appreciate you talking to us.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.